The Browns, they're putrid. They're the worst team in the NFL.
The 2024 season is over.
Lamar Jackson can't win the playoffs. He'll win a third MVP, though, so that's great.
Drew Sample is the most important piece of the Bengals offense next year.
Go Joe Burrow. He deserves to be MVP. I wish he was the Browns quarterback. Kind of mean that.
If you're looking for the most reactionary, silly, and unserious show on the internet, then you're home. Live from Hamilton, Ohio, it's Off the Bench by Chatterbox Sports on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, we are up and rolling here on a Wednesday. This is Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. I'm Justin Kinner, Elliot Rearing, Jacob Tissett, and yes, Casey McAllister in the producer chair, kicking things off here on a Wednesday. Ton to dive into. We'll talk about the Reds. We didn't get into the Reds on yesterday's show. We'll squeeze them in here today. More on the Tee Higgins, Jamar Chase contract signing. Not so much about the signing of the contract, but I want to focus more on the negotiation. There was something unique that happened during the negotiation that I'm wondering if we're going to see more of moving forward, not just with the Cincinnati Bengals, but the NFL and maybe other sports. We'll get to that coming up here shortly as well. We're a couple games into the NCAA tournament, or at least the first four, depending on how you want to look at it. But more first four action tonight. Xavier going to be in action taking on Texas, 9:10, the tip-off time for that. We'll talk about that more coming up here shortly as well. But before we get into the headlines, let's get to the guys. Elliot, good morning. How are we today? Are you ready for headlines? I saw you were stretching before the show. You were getting your steps in. You were getting loose and ready to go for headlines.
No, I'm all right. It's a good day. It's a Wednesday. It's the day before March Madness. It's like Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
This is what today is. So it's
like Christmas Eve because the real day starts tomorrow.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
The first four doesn't count.
Well,
you just said that's absolutely right.
No, well, I said it was absolutely right.
You did, and that's unfortunate.
I said it as a way to further the conversation. Listen, I love the first four yesterday. I turned the second game off respectfully at about halftime. But the first game was great. I love the 16 versus 16 just because it's two evenly bad teams, and I think that's fun to watch. I think that's entertaining. So I had a good time watching that game yesterday, and I'm excited for your Xavier Musketeers to play tonight. I think I haven't decided who I'm going to bet on. I'm 0 for 2 to start March Madness. Not a great start.
Yeah, I've made a decision a while ago that I'm just gonna ride the SEC. So that's
an interesting decision.
That's going to start tonight.
Yeah.
And it's going to be Texas.
That's interesting because I'm going to fade the SEC.
That's fun.
Every SEC team that's in this tournament I'm going to bet against.
I took the over 20.5.
Yeah.
I believe that is the line for the conference wins in the tournament. So, yeah, I'm going to rock with them basically in every matchup.
I'm going to take the under on that. I don't know where that's at, but I'm going to find it, and I'm going to hammer the under.
91% non-conference winning percentage as a conference.
Did you know they're 500 as a conference in whole?
They sure are.
They're 500 as a conference.
I was expecting better. You know?
What was that?
I was expecting him to be better. I thought an above 500
parity, man. Shout out Greg Sankey. That's parity.
I also thought that they'd be better. But yeah, it's a good day. I'm excited for the games tonight.
Real quick though. So last night you bring up that Alabama State St. Francis game, 70-68, the best game of the night. Those matchups are always way more competitive for obvious reasons. But you called them bad teams. Why are they bad teams, Elliot? Why are they bad? Because they're the little guy. What makes them bad teams?
Listen. I go against Jacob when I say these games count. But you can't put me in a corner and say they aren't bad teams. You can't lock me in the corner and say, what was it, 16-15 Alabama State?
Alabama State's say they're a good team.
They're a good team.
Now me and
you could make an argument. Fine, that one's fine. But are you saying that any 16 seed is just a bad team?
No, I'm saying teams with losing records are bad teams.
What about Alabama State? They're 20-15. How good are they?
Not that good.
Average.
I mean, what do you want me to say? I'll tell you what. You tell me what you
no, it's your opinion, but like two teams tonight, 22-12. Both teams are 22-12. They're 20-win teams. They won their conference. They're NCAA tournament teams. Are you saying that they're bad teams?
I'm not. You're putting me in a corner, and I hate it. What were the records yesterday? I mean, St. Francis was 16-18. I mean, give me a break.
So
what do you want me to say?
You're right. They're a good story, not a good team. That's fair.
I think that you're allowed to say that the 16 seeds aren't good teams. I think you're allowed to say that.
It's America. You can
or
say
you're allowed to say 16. Yeah, it's Elliot's opinion. You can say it. It's fine. I was just curious. That's all. Most people would agree with you. I'm in the minority on that. That's why I was asking. But either way,
I'm gonna find their KenPom rankings. So hold on. Now let me go find their KenPom rankings.
Let's not do that. I don't want to.
No, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. Let's see where St. Francis is first.
What about the American?
St. Francis. They're not even on here. So hold on.
Start in the 300s and just scroll up from there. It would be
Alabama State. Alabama State. The team that you said is good is 275.
I didn't say they were good.
The team that you said were good. The team that you said were good was they're 275th in KenPom.
So not last. Nice.
Surely out of a lot.
Surely.
Who's the worst team? Is it really three? Who's the worst team in college basketball?
Should be Mississippi Valley State. Yeah, it is. Mississippi Valley State. They had one win on the year.
Two wins on the last 2 years. One win both of the last 2 seasons.
Correct.
Consistency. I like that.
One Division I win, I should clarify. One Division I win.
Yes, but no, by no means am I saying that Mount St. Mary's and American University tonight are the equivalent to Xavier, Texas, Duke, and the other bigger schools out there. But I just wanted to know if a 22-12 conference champion NCAA tournament team is bad. That's all. That was just.
Yeah, I'll say yes.
Okay, fair. That's a question. I'm just looking for an answer. That's all.
Yeah.
I'll
just give you a yes.
Another part of it too. And now we're completely off the rails. I was looking this up yesterday just because I was curious. Like the highest seeds to ever win the tournament, and part of me saying they're bad is because I mean nobody's in here ever thinking that a 16 seed could win a tournament. That's why we say it. You know, they have the belief, they have the hope, they have the dream, and it technically is possible, but nobody actually thinks that, right? I was looking up the seeds since the tournament expanded to 64. There has been one 8 seed that's ever won this tournament. It happened the very first year of expansion. It was either 8. It was in the 80s, I think. There has been one 7 seed that's won it. That happened somewhat recently with UConn.
Yeah.
That's right. There was one 6 seed that's won this tournament. That happened again very early on into expansion, maybe the 80s or early 90s. There was 2 4 seeds that have won this tournament. 4 3 seeds. 5 2 seeds, and 25 1 seeds. Those are the only seeds that have ever won this tournament. No 5 seeds ever won. No 9 seed, 10 seed, 11 seed, 12
I'll stick
seed,
my neck out here. Give you a real hot take.
Okay.
A 1 or a 2 seed's going to win this tournament.
He's on it.
A 1 or a 2. One of those 8 teams.
Here's what I did last night. I got so mad that I bet on San Diego State. I put 20 on Carolina to win it all.
Oh.
I went the opposite way.
Oh.
So if that hits, I win $5,000. So
we wouldn't see you again.
Good luck. Yeah, good luck to me.
Is there any worse feeling than losing your first bet of the tournament?
No.
I mean, you got to get it out of your system in the
It's
first
terrible.
4. But I mean, we all know that no matter which side we bet on Louisville Creighton, we will lose.
Oh my God, yeah.
No matter what.
And I'm hammering Louisville.
Yeah,
That's
me
the
too.
worst part. So
Me
it's
too.
going to be really frustrating for me, who also has a future on Louisville.
Stephen Ashworth had to raise his kid. Chucky Hepburn's going to have him in a torture chamber for 40 minutes. I mean, this is going to be awesome.
Sorry, I derailed the show.
No one has derailed anything. We're good. No, you went and you looked at the lowest seeds or the highest seeds, whatever, to actually win it. If that was combative to me asking you if you thought 16s were good or bad, it was not me advocating that I think a 16 could win a national championship. Just wanted to get that out of the way. Because I heard Kinner doesn't watch sports, so I just wanted to clarify that I'm very well aware that a 16 seed cannot, win a national championship. It's against the rules. It cannot happen. It will never happen.
It would be
So
fun.
there you go.
It would
All
be
right.
fun.
What's the furthest you think one could actually go? Obviously, we've seen him go to the round of 32. It's feasible you could, squeak past an 8 or 9, get to a Sweet 16. Is that it?
I bet there might be one team that gets really hot and gets to an Elite 8. Because
16?
That's what St. Peter's did. They were 15.
Yeah. How big is the difference?
15 and 16, I feel like there's not that big of a difference.
No? Okay.
I feel like there's not that big of a difference. I think Elite 8's the absolute ceiling.
I would agree with that for sure. There's no way they could make it to a Final Four.
Like your 15s and 16s are about equally bad in the eyes of Elliot. 15s and 16s are equally bad. 1s and 2s are pretty much equally good. Like this idea that, okay, we avoided the 16 line, or we didn't get the 16 line, thank God, because we avoided the 1. Luckily we get, who's your 2 seeds? I mean,
St.
you're not
John's,
out.
yeah.
And Yeah, you didn't benefit from getting the 15 versus 2 versus the
one.
16-1. Yeah, but either way. All right, we'll get into more March Madness talk coming up later on in the show. We're all going to give you a couple of our upset locks, if you will. Which upsets are we the most confident about heading into tomorrow? Of course, we got that coming up around the corner. But let's send it to Elliot. Hold on. Casey, how are we? My bad. Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. I'm all right. I don't got much to say. I didn't actually watch the first 4.
Good.
So, yeah, I mean, my real tournament starts Thursday.
All right, back to Elliot for Elliot's headline.
Thursday at Champions Grill. Champions Grill with an E.
That's
Worth
right.
Road with an E. Again, we'll be there from 10 to probably like 11:45 before the games, then stream for the games. Feel free to come by, step by. But yes, Elliot's headlines.
Score updates, breaking news, local and national headlines. Whatever's going on in the world of sports, Elliot has you covered. Off the Bench brings you Elliot's headlines.
We'll start with college basketball. We already talked about it, so why not? Alabama State, St. Francis on a Hail Mary pass. They beat them on a Hail Mary pass, 70-68, the final. I don't know if I know you guys watched it, but if you didn't watch it, it was the Christian Laettner play pretty much gone wrong. They threw it as far as they could down the court. It just bounced everywhere and somehow fell into the lap of Alabama State. They put it back up and in. They win 70-68. They take on Auburn next. Good luck to them. North Carolina, 95-68 over San Diego State. They shot 58, North Carolina did. They shot 58% from beyond the arc, 87% from the foul line on 24 attempts. Up next for the Tar Heels is Ole Miss. So Ole Miss will take on North Carolina in a 6-11. San Diego State should be ashamed of themselves, for those of us who bet on them. UC Riverside. Riverside, the team that caused a lot of controversy this week with being invited to 2 different tournaments. Well, they lost by 40 last night in the NIT to Santa Clara, 101-62. 101-62. UC Riverside's been eliminated. Arkansas State, they won by nearly 30 against St. Louis. Kent State, they get a 20-point win over the Bonnies. That's a team a lot of people thought didn't deserve to be in.
Woj.
Chattanooga in Middle Tennessee, they went to 3 overtimes last night, where Chattanooga winds up with that win, 109-103, again in triple overtime. And Oklahoma State, they beat Wichita State 89-79. But those are your college basketball headlines. Moving over to the Cincinnati Reds. The losing streak is over. They shut out the Angels 1-0. 2 hits apiece for Gavin Lux and Matt McClain. Nick Martinez, he looked incredible, striking out 6 in 4 innings of work, allowing only 1 hit. So the Reds get a little bit of a bounce-back win there. The Dodgers, I hate to report this. I really do hate to. I asked the guys, did they play today? And they're like, yeah, they did, unfortunately. The Dodgers beat the Cubs again, 6-3. Who would have thought it? Sasaki, 3 innings. He struck out 3, allowed an earned run. Otani, Edman, and Hernandez all went deep, all hit home runs. Justin Steele, he got blasted off the face of the earth. He went 4 innings, gave up 5 hits and 5 earned runs and a walk. Tough to be a Cubs fan. But again, these games don't count.
Correct.
If you're a Cubs fan. Those games didn't happen.
Dodgers,
correct.
They're gonna win a lot of baseball.
I think they're going to win them all.
It's gonna be really annoying.
They're going to win them all. NBA, the Cavaliers, they dropped another game last night, 132-119. Back-to-back losses for the Cavs. I wonder how many times that has happened this year. They lose to the Clippers. The Warriors, they beat the Bucks without Steph Curry, 104-93. And the Hawks, they win by 30 against the Hornets. Thanks to Trae Young, who dropped 31. But those... Oh, I guess I have one more. The Vikings have announced that it will not be Aaron Rodgers. They're going to ride with JJ. It's going to be the JJ show in Minnesota. Those are my headlines.
They were getting trade offers for JJ with all the other quarterback news like bubbling up and being rumored. And I want to know what those offers were. Because he was, the 11th overall pick in the draft?
Yeah.
He didn't play. There's no way they're getting a first-round pick offered for him without any tape coming off an ACL injury. Even most people didn't have him as a first-round pick going into that draft. So what was the value for him, and what is the value that they would have traded him for if there is any? I'm starting to think that they were probably getting offered mid-round picks, 3rd, 4th, 5th in the best-case scenario, and they have no incentive to move him for that and start someone else.
Yeah, I have no idea. I certainly would. There's no way anybody believes in J.J. McCarthy.
I think every single person in Minnesota does.
I guess. I still don't believe that. I still don't believe the good people in Minnesota believe in J.J.
I
McCarthy.
mean, in the facility, not the fans.
Oh, okay. Then yeah, that's fine.
I'll honestly believe in whoever's playing quarterback for Kevin O'Connell.
You're a KOC guy.
I'm a KOC stan.
Okay.
So I think, with all due respect, they could throw you out there and I'd be pretty high on the Vikings next year.
No, and what's funny is the team that, of course, traded for and ended up getting Kirk Cousins. We thought they made the dumbest decision, or a lot of people thought they made the dumbest decision at quarterback last year, going after, of course, getting Kirk Cousins and then drafting a quarterback in the top 10. And now all of a sudden the Vikings look like they're the ones in the mess, and they look like they're in good shape as far as that goes with the Kirk Cousins. They opted to keep him. The Falcons opted to keep Kirk Cousins at least on the roster past that deadline. So they're not moving him. He's not going anywhere, at least as of right now. So we'll see what happens there. Other news out of college basketball from yesterday: Indiana didn't waste time in naming their next head coach. While everyone was, throwing the pity party for West Virginia over the last couple of days, well, their head coach decided, you know what, I'm not going to stick around for that pity party. I'm going to go start a new pity party over at Indiana. West Virginia's head coach, Darian DeVries, named the new head men's basketball coach over there. The school announced just yesterday. He did receive a 6-year deal with the school, according to ESPN. He'll join the Hoosiers after spending just one season with the Mountaineers. He was just hired last March, of course. One and done at West Virginia, but we'll see I don't know if it's a good hire or not for Indiana. We'll see. Indiana, we always told them.
Yeah, Mavericks distant number 1, worst fan base to be a part of. Close number 2 now in 2025, West Virginia.
Tough to be
Is this the worst 48 hours for a college program's fan base, in the last 5 years or so? I mean,
it's
to get snubbed from the tournament like that, 111 out of 111 brackets. And then the only thing you have to really hold on to is, well, at least this coach we hired last year is really stinking good. And then he's gone overnight. That is brutal to go through if you're a West Virginia fan.
Yeah, I can't even imagine it. The press conference went viral last night. If you saw his opening press conference for West Virginia, how he said he's going to be there for a long time, reminds me of the Kyrie clip. Have you ever seen that?
Told the kids.
when the little kid says, "Are you going to leave us?" like LeBron did, and then he went to Boston like a day later.
Yeah.
But yeah, listen, I think that it's absolutely brutal. I bet that deal was done a long time ago. I don't know when, but I'd imagine once. The Indiana, that coaching vacancy started to really spiral and get into the media. I imagine he was probably called number 1, and they got him. So It's tough to be a West Virginia fan right about now.
Funny enough, IU Anonymous, a little burner Twitter account, had Darian DeVries to Indiana about 10 days ago.
Really?
They tweeted out that the decision's already been made, the contract is being finalized. And then about an hour after that, again, 10 days ago, they said, I'm not scared to say names, it's Darian DeVries. And they got dunked on and killed for it for the last 10 days, and now it's official.
Burner's going to burn.
The everything
there
app,
you go.
man.
The everything app.
It's all happening on X.
I'm surprised. So no Brad Stevens. Darn, I thought for sure this would be the year. I thought for sure this would be the job.
You're not the only one. There was some chatter in this office about Brad Stevens to Indiana.
And Kentucky other places
and Kentucky
too.
For sure.
UCLA a couple years ago.
Yeah. Maybe Thad Matta hangs it up. He goes back to Butler, but I think he really likes being the GM of the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, I think
that's a pretty good job.
Leading the organization of one of the more storied organizations in all of professional
just won
sports.
a championship, and you're probably the favorite to do it again this year.
Yeah.
Now, here's why I don't feel bad for West Virginia, because they have a chance to do something to resurrect the program. That's the same opportunity that Elliott's Bearcats had.
That'd be way funnier than you see.
They chose in rewarding Wes Miller for a crown appearance by bringing him back for another year. And West Virginia has a chance to bring back Bob Huggins and surpass Cincinnati. Well, not really surpass Cincinnati because they're already – I don't know. West Virginia, Bob Huggins, could they reunite? What do you guys think? Do you think it's a possibility? Bob Huggins said he wanted to coach again about a month ago. It led to the conversations about could it time up with Cincinnati's head coach opening. Well, now West Virginia has to fill a head coach vacancy. I think that's a good way to kind of, ease the tension with the fan base right now who feels slighted. Bob Huggins, if he's the head coach of West Virginia, they're not getting slighted the way that they just did on Sunday.
I agree with that. If he's their coach, they probably don't leave him out because what did Paul say when he was on? Brands matter. And
that's right.
Huggy's certainly a brand. They probably would have got him in there, but I would say Huggins to West Virginia is even less likely than Huggins to UC. I mean, they just fired him.
He's 71 years old. I mean, if you want to start your program with somebody, that's fine. But
Johnny's doing all right.
Who?
Johnny's.
Well, okay. I mean, there's a little bit of difference in Rick Pitino and Bob Huggins, I'd say. But yes, I mean, if you wanted to go
There's
back,
a little bit of a difference between Bob Huggins and Wes Miller too.
I mean,
yeah, one's
see.
playing in the
You're
Crown.
quite the agent. You're quite the ageist. I feel like if you go to the restaurant, do you want to know the age of the cook that's making your meal in the back? Like, I'm just curious. You're against old people having jobs, Elliot.
That's not true. That's not true. And the fact that we have to discuss that slander is disgusting. I mean, who's the oldest? Who's the oldest coach right now? D'Antoni left. Is it
I would assume
Patino?
it's Patino. I don't know who else would be.
Well, it might be the Oakland guy. How old's Oakland? How old's Oakland's
Campy.
guy?
Campy's
Kenner,
upper. I think he might be right up there with Patino. I think he's in his upper 50s or 60s as well. Let's do.
No,
a little
he's
Google
60.
search.
He's 69.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah, Patino's
Greg
72.
Campy, yeah.
Listen. You can go with Bob. If you want to go Bob Huggins, you go Bob Huggins.
No, we'll see what. Look, I doubt
Tom
it
Izzo.
happens
How
anyway.
old's Tom Izzo? Tom
We're
Izzo
looking it up.
is 70. He's 70. So Izzo is younger than Huggins.
Yeah, and Izzo's great. He just won a championship back in 2000, dude. He's fine.
That's right. He's a little whippersnapper.
Yeah.
I mean,
All right, we'll be right back.
Izzo has a tough sell because he did this whole brand thing, January, February, Izzo, April, and the Final Four championship are in April.
Correct.
It's like he can't win them. He just gets to he's like, my month is over. My name's gone. It's April now.
All right, we'll be right back. This is Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. Tee Higgins, Jamar Chase, they get that contract done and the Bengals get the contract done over the weekend. We spent a lot of time on it yesterday. Different angle to approach it when we come back. There was something that was a part of that Jake brought up yesterday that I don't think a lot of people have really kind of zeroed in on, that I think could be a pattern moving forward. I think we're going to see a lot more of this where agents who have multiple, whether it's teammates or there's multiple players under their umbrella, kind of use the leverage of teaming them up to get a deal done. Will we see more of that? We'll discuss more when we come back. More Off the Bench next. All right, and we are back off the bench. Justin Kinner, Elliot Rearing, Jacob Tissett, Casey McAllister, off and rolling here on a Wednesday. Part of the storyline with the contract negotiations or the contract extensions, if you will, for Tee Higgins and Jamar Chase, the unique talking point that kind of stemmed from it was, of course, that we knew that Tee Higgins parted ways with his original representation with in the middle of the season, and of course, I got the same agent as Jamar Chase and figured that the tea leaves had started to kind of form that maybe there is a chance. We had all kind of given up on the idea of Tee playing for the Bengals past this previous season, but then all of a sudden people started buying in. Joe Burrow got very vocal after that Cowboys game, all of a sudden harping on the need of Tee Higgins, and then he has an agent representation change, and then it's the same representation of Jamar Chase, and then Jamar Chase is saying how much they need to keep Tee Higgins. That's really when it started kind of snowballing and kind of getting people to buy back into the fact that Tee could be with the Bengals past the 2024 season. So they finally get the deal done this past weekend, but a lot of reporting started coming out that, well, it basically became a Jamar Chase. You knew he was going to get his deal. You knew he was going to be the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. He had been letting it be known for well over a year that he wanted to reset the market. He couldn't wait for Justin Jefferson to get paid because that was going to reset the market and that would get him paid more. Well, then it became not just about being the highest paid wide receiver in football. It was about becoming the highest paid non-quarterback in football, and he got that. But part of the negotiations within that was, I'm going to sign here, but I'm not signing a damn thing until you get the extension done with Tee Higgins. And having the same representation kind of made that very much simpler to do, at least on their end, made things very difficult for the Bengals, of course. But you do have to wonder if the Bengals' arm is not twisted, is Tee Higgins a Bengal? And if they don't have that approach, or now because they had that approach and it gets done that way, what's the likelihood that we see more of this type of thing moving forward, where you have agents who have players who want to play together and use that as leverage to get deals done with teams? Hey, you really want this guy? You can have him, but you also have to sign this guy over here as well. Do you see this being a pattern moving forward in a copycat league like the NFL?
Tee Higgins is only a Bengal because of two things, and one of them is certainly what you're saying right there, Jamar Chase kind of putting him under his wing, saying this is a package deal in terms of these negotiations. The other thing is Joe Burrow's media tour, and I think both of those were pretty unique to this situation. How often do we see players across the league go on a campaign publicly basically against their front office about the plans that they want for pending free agents? We don't see that very often, especially at the volume in which Joe Burrow was doing it. So I think both those things are incredibly unique to this negotiation with Cincinnati and Tee Higgins, and I don't think it gets done without it. Tee said almost as much yesterday in the press conference. He thanked Joe Burrow time and time again for going through that media tour, said without stepping up after the game in Dallas, saying T's a need, without going and pushing that over the summer, then Tee Higgins probably wouldn't be back. He basically said that yesterday, and I think that's a huge thing. The point with him and Jamar being a package deal, they asked him about their friendship yesterday at the press conference, and T kind of jumped on the question and said that they're just as good friends off the field as they are on the field. They work so well together. They help each other out, all that stuff. And then I believe it was Charlie Goldsmith asked why that's such a unique thing among elite wide receivers in the league. And Jamar Chase said, because you're taking away from production. With one guy being great, having a great wide receiver too, neither of you can reach the goals statistically that necessarily you want to reach, but as a team, you have a greater chance to win a championship. And I think especially at the wide receiver position, it's very rare that players would be willing to sacrifice production. We talk about the diva wide receiver all the time as the archetype for the wide receiver one, and I don't think those guys, more often than not, are going to be willing to sacrifice to be a 1A to a 1B when they can be dominant elsewhere. We have two guys in Cincinnati, not that Jamar Chase ever sacrifices. He won a Triple Crown, and Tee Higgins has shown that he's been able to put up 1,000-yard seasons before. So they can both be immensely successful, but they are both sacrificing, whether that's in dollar signs or production that they could have somewhere else. They're taking somewhat of a step back when they could both be dominant, pure number ones on a different team. And I just don't think relationships like this big three we have in Cincinnati are common enough for this to be something that's used elsewhere. Will players grab other guys and say, if you want to extend me, go get him as well? Maybe. But I think in the sense that we saw Jamar and T work, I think that's incredibly unique. And I think this is why a lot of us had confidence that the recessions would be made by these guys to come back, because we knew we wouldn't be able to match top market value for all these players. We did with Jamar, and T took a little bit off that deal. And the only reason he did that, he said, is because he grew up a Bengals fan, and it's because he loves these guys. And those were the points that everyone outside of Cincinnati kept saying didn't matter the whole time, and Bengals fans were holding on to. And I think that's really what got it across the finish line. But the uniqueness of this relationship is what kept these guys in town, and I think it's exactly that. I think it's incredibly unique.
I don't think you're going to see another scenario out there where, two guys are so intertwined with one another in the fact that the vibe, their job they work so close together, and they want to make their careers or have their careers with one another. Yeah. I think in today's sports landscape, you're seeing it in college, you're seeing it everywhere. You want to make as much money as possible. It doesn't matter where that location is. It doesn't matter who your teammates are. You just want to make as much money as possible. I will say, if there are people out there, and sports agents, there's a lot of similar sports agents. We were talking about it this morning. Scott Boras. Scott Boras has got a ton of clients, right? Well, maybe there's a couple Reds out there that are like, listen, I want to be in Cincinnati, so does player X, and we're not going to sign a deal with you unless you bring us both here, unless we're both together. I don't know how often that's going to happen in sports, and certainly in baseball you're going to see it less because obviously markets, so there's some small market teams that are not going to be able to do it. But in the NFL, where you have the money, you have the salary cap, I do think there's a chance that some guys will start to team up. I'm not going to rule that out. And if anybody was out there right now that has a similar agent with a teammate and they're very close to that teammate, why wouldn't you try it? I mean, it doesn't make sense. You can't hurt anybody. Just try it, I guess, if you're really interested in that. But the fact of the matter is, like Jacob kind of said, Tee Higgins could have gotten whatever he wanted out there on that open market. He would have been a wide receiver one on some team in the NFL. To have a guy, not really have an ego and say, I'm willing to be number 2 as long as my number 2 is to Jamar Chase's 1. That specific situation, there's not many of that out there. And the fact of the matter is that the Bengals have a very cool situation here, and I think they should take advantage of it. And it's why that when the news that T switched agents to Jamar's agent, I think when that moment happened, everybody in this room specifically, and probably a lot of Bengals fans out there, thought it was a real possibility that he was going to stay, because there's no other real reason to do that, right? I mean, maybe his agent stunk, his prior agent, but I don't think that was the case.
Mulligan is the best agent in football.
Correct. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think that would have ever been the case. He switched for a specific reason, and that reason was to stay in Cincinnati and play football with presumably one of his best friends and his teammate Jamar Chase.
He said spider. Casey had a great.
That scared the living shit out of me. I'm not going to lie. And I will bleep that out. No, I'm bleeping it out. That thing was coming down. It was in my face. And I had to be calm. But then I said, F it, forget it. Like, what the hell? Continue.
Casey had a great point on this. I was looking through agents trying to find teams with guys, star players under multiple guys under the same agent. I didn't see a whole lot of that across the league. But we also have to remember, if we're looking at that, at this time last year, T didn't have the same agent as Jamar. So if they're going to use this as a point of negotiation, we'll probably see this switch happen during negotiations, like we saw with Tee Higgins, when that initial agent doesn't quite get the job done. Casey, I don't want to steal it from you. I'll let you give your take, but it was certainly, I think, in my opinion, the best comparison to what we saw here.
Yeah, it's really hard to even, figure out the exact scenario, because you have to have the friendship there. You have to have similar position group.
And they have to be good.
And they have to be good, right? And the only one that came to my mind right away was the Lions with David Montgomery and
Jahmyr Gibbs.
Jahmyr Gibbs, sorry. And those two, David Montgomery's a little older, so there's probably a good likelihood, a good chance that the Lions, when his contract is up, want to move away from him. But at the same time, Jahmyr Gibbs will also be coming up. And so I think there's a chance that maybe they can work together. It's unfortunate because they're kind of far apart, right? Like they could tag Jahmyr Gibbs if they wanted to and let David walk. But this is such a unique situation that there's no other team in the league that has this scenario. You think of maybe like, is there a D lineman comparison, right? I thought of like the Eagles. Well, the Eagles already pay everyone, and like that mold.
They let their whole D line go.
Yeah, they're letting guys go already. So, and again, the other thing too is the bond that you clearly see that's different between T, Jamar, and Joe. There's just nothing quite like it. And the rest of the league, who's not super dialed into Bengals every single day, where we get to watch them in training camp, where we get to watch every little clip, every little podcast that they get on. These guys are like tied to the hip. They are best friends inside the locker room, outside the locker room. And that scenario is just so unique in the NFL that the situation that happened over the week, it deserves more praise. And the reason why we're covering it in this segment is because this is unprecedented. Yeah. I think this is one of the first times in NFL history where I can remember a group of guys being signed at the same time, same position group, top dollar, basically. I just don't think that there's ever been something like that. I would have to do a little more research on that, because there's been great receiver duos in the past.
Well, and they're both in their prime.
Yeah.
Which is the tough part. Like I love your example of Gibbs and Montgomery. I think that's probably the best one, because you have the whole Sonic and Knuckles thing. They obviously get along very well. They're both very productive. But the big difference between that and T and Jamar is we just gave T and Jamar two four-year massive deals. The reason why that makes so much sense is because as Jahmyr Gibbs' contract expands, David Montgomery would be getting older and cheaper. So you'd be able to kind of move that money around to make it make sense for everybody. I'm hard-pressed to find another situation where it makes sense that this would take place. I mean, think about the other dominant receiver duos in the league. When Devontae Smith has 3 good games in a row, A.J. Brown's reading a book on the sideline and tweeting about how much he hates his life. When Tee Higgins has a good game, Jamar Chase is the first one to congratulate him on the sidelines. Jalen Waddle goes off for 2 weeks, Tyreek Hill requests a trade. Jamar goes off, Tee Higgins is buckling the chain around his neck when he gets to the bench. Like, these guys are such good friends, and that just doesn't exist, especially in this position group. It's so unique, and I know a lot of people want to use it as a negative against the Bengals front office. Oh, the players are in control. You have no control over your contracts, yada, yada, yada. If this is what it takes to extend good players in Cincinnati, by all means, let's do it. So I don't necessarily think package deals are going to become more prevalent. The thing I do think is going to become a lot more prevalent is star quarterbacks talking. I think people saw what Joe Burrow did this year, saw it made a difference, and whether you're a part of a cheap organization like the Bengals that you're trying to change, or the part of a rich organization like the Dallas Cowboys that don't want to spend money, I don't think it matters. I think we're going to see star players be outspoken about roster decisions and what they want more often. I think we're already seeing it a little bit with Micah Parsons, CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott. When they reset their contracts, they talked about where they want that money spent. I think we're going to see that a lot around the league. I don't know as much about the package deal just because it's so hard to find.
So the question I have, I think Joe Burrow's getting too much credit for the Tee Higgins thing because I feel like the Bengals are willing to let T go whether Joe wanted him or not. I feel like this had more to do with Jamar Chase saying he is either extended or I'm not staying. I feel like that's what we kind of discussed yesterday too. What happens if Jamar doesn't go as much to bat for T? And by the way, it's not Jamar's responsibility to go to bat for T. I agree with you. This is a unique situation. It's not just that they're best friends. There's a lot of teammates on every single team, close teams that have friends on the roster that hang out and do all the stuff that you guys just mentioned. But there's not a lot of guys that are willing to go out on a limb and use their contract negotiation and not waste time, but use time in that to get every dollar they have coming to them to also make sure that they make the time to get their best friend and their teammate money too. That's why, as I said on my show yesterday, I was like, everyone knows, I poke at the Bengals, poke at Jamar Chase, this, that, and the other. There's nothing to poke on Jamar Chase on. As great of a talent as he is on the field, he's as good a person off the field. For him to use his leverage and to him to use his contract negotiation to make sure that you get Tee Higgins, that's something we've never seen. You're going to see teammates who want to play together and stay together moving forward on other teams. You won't see. I agree with you guys. I don't think you're going to see many situations where you have one of the best players in the league use their leverage to make sure that they get to remain playing with one of their best friends. I think that's very cool and unique. What happens, though, if he doesn't do that? Is Tee Higgins a Bengal today? If Jamar Chase doesn't use his leverage in that negotiation, is Tee Higgins a Bengal today? If you're asking me, I don't believe he is. That's why Joe Burrow doing that tour, I'm not saying it didn't work, but I also feel like if it worked, it wouldn't have taken Jamar Chase having to use that leverage in that negotiation to get that done if that's the case. If it truly was about making Burrow happy, Jamar Chase and Tee Higgins could have had separate negotiations and it would have just been sign here, both of you, and let's get on with this. It took Jamar Chase twisting their arm. I don't know if they did respond to the fear of Joe Burrow. I think the intention was to always get Jamar Chase done. I don't think they were anticipating having their arm twisted by Jamar Chase when it came to the Tee Higgins side. If he doesn't do that, is Tee Higgins a Bengal today, do you think?
As Kanye West said, and I know this gets dangerous right about now, but I guess we'll never know.
What did he say, Jacob?
I guess we'll never know. Yeah. So I'm glad we don't live in that world. I'm glad Jamar Chase did what he had to do and got Tee Higgins back. Whether Joe Burrow's pressure got Tee Higgins across the finish line or not, we don't know for sure. I would tend to side with you and say that it did not, that the Jamar Chase add-on as a package deal, that was the reason that it got across the finish line. However, I don't think the Joe Burrow outside pressure did nothing. Even if it moved their starting offer a little bit higher, a few more guarantees, still far from T's asking price. But if Joe Burrow's pressure just moved that a little bit, maybe that makes the relationship better at the start of those negotiations. Maybe they started low, and that Joe Burrow media tour bumped it up, and they came back with a second offer. And that helps the relationship as you progress through those negotiations. I think you're absolutely right that the package deal's what got this done. That's why they're still here in Cincy. Shout out to Jamar. Shout out to Rocky Arsenault for getting it done. It was one of the better Twitter notifications I've gotten in my entire life. But I do think that the Joe Burrow outside pressure did something. And whether whether or not that was a huge reason why this got done, I guess we can have that debate. But I do think that it made at least a little bit of a difference. I have a hard time believing it didn't.
I mean, we have the clip if you want to run it. I mean, we have the clip, of Tee Higgins saying that. I think it was a help. I don't think that Joe Burrow feels inclined to go out of his way and go on a week-long tour, saying how much he wants to pay his friends. Like I don't think he does that unless he feels he has to. Tee Higgins was asked about it yesterday, and I wanted to run the clip for you here, Justin. Maybe Tee Higgins will change your mind.
Do you guys feel like Joe's statements, whether it be publicly or privately, really helped make this happen for the three of you guys to be able to stay together?
I think it was a big help, him just putting out little information, having our back. I think that's the biggest thing, especially coming from a quarterback. It's different if me and T vouching for somebody else before our quarterback to vouch for us. I think that's given us, a pathway to get us where we got here.
I just think that there are a lot of teams out there that have had similar situations, maybe not to the extent that the Bengals had this offseason, but similar situations where you want to pay a wide receiver and the quarterback wants you to pay the wide receiver, but is the quarterback going to speak out? I've never seen it. I've never really seen it in my time watching the NFL. Joe Burrow doing what he did was a different thing, and I think it genuinely helped the Bengals, or helped Tee Higgins and Jamar Chase get their deals.
No, when you asked if what he said will change my mind, no, only because, hey, Jamar T, did Joe Burrow's efforts out there, help you get this deal done? What are they going to say? Nah, he's a bum. That didn't help at all. I like I said, if it worked, you don't franchise him for the second time. If it worked, you get it done.
They were always going to franchise him the second time. That was never a question.
But Joe Burrow said he wanted him last year. Joe Burrow was never once not saying he didn't want him. Joe Burrow was putting the pressure on him last year. If Joe Burrow's words truly worked, Jamar Chase wouldn't have had to blackmail him, if you will, or twist their arm to get it done at the end of the day, in my opinion. But it got done.
They were both necessary, is what I'm like. I don't even think T gets done with just the package deal if Joe Burrow's not saying that he's a need all the time.
Yeah.
So I think they were both necessary to get this across the finish line.
Fair enough. But it got done. All that matters.
Absolutely.
And at the end of the day, regardless of how it got done and opinions of whether it's good or not, up next is just results. It's who was it? Was Zach Taylor? I think said it yesterday. Like right now, the next stage is you got to get a championship. And it's the only way it's a feel-good story now, but the only way it remains that is if you have a Super Bowl to show for it. And I'm not saying it has to be next season, but at least, you know what I mean? Like what's that? How far do they have to get next year to keep that pressure off of this unit, whether Zach Taylor, whether Joe Burrow, because Joe Burrow will be viewed differently now, Zach Taylor, and right or wrong, that's not me hating. It's just, how this stuff works when this type of stuff happens. How far do they have to go next year, at the very least, for them to shake off some of that criticism that come from the outsiders, if you will?
Lucky for them, they missed the playoffs the last 2 years, so it's make the playoffs.
Yeah, it's
just
the bar's
lucky for them, they have been terrible the last 2 years. So if they get in the playoffs, if they got in the playoffs last year with how bad the first 4 months of that season was, I would have talked myself into winning that Super Bowl in 30 seconds.
Yep.
So yeah, I would love for them. If you want me to give you a real line, it's compete for the division with Baltimore. If you don't win it, be within 2 games. Be the top wild card team unless someone else goes crazy, and then at least win 1 game in the playoffs. That's really my kind of bubble for this season, at bare minimum.
Yeah, my line is the playoffs. If they don't make the playoffs in 3 straight years with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, the Bengals have a lot of problems that honestly I don't even know if it can be fixed at that point.
I saw one of the PFF analysts was asking the question. They said, if you have the best quarterback in the league, or one of arguably the best quarterback in the league, and the best wide receiving room in the league, and the best offensive coach in the league, you'll never miss the playoffs. So one of those 3 things is not true.
Yeah.
We'll find out this year, I guess.
Yeah, if anything, I feel like it just puts so much more pressure on not Joe Burrow, not Jamar and T, Zach Taylor. It's really all this, like Zach Taylor's cheesing away up there yesterday, but I feel like, dude, you have the look of a guy that might be coaching his final season. Because
I also think with how short his leash is, he had no chance if they didn't re-sign him. Like, he was not lasting through an offensive rebuild at the same time as rebuilding this defense. Like, there's no way he had a chance to survive that. So he's got to be the happiest of anyone that Jamar and T are signed. And then the biggest loser of all this, Carson Palmer. Bum.
Yeah, Carson, but he'll spin it. He'll find a way.
He will.
Well, yeah, because I said earlier, like, so what's the furthest, or what's the how far do the Bengals have to go to keep the pressure off of Joe Burrow and others, or the criticism or whatever? I think that question is different than how far do they have to go for Zach Taylor's job to remain safe, because we could say, well, they got to the divisional round, good for them. But if they get knocked out of the divisional round, trust me, just like every single Bengals loss over the last 3 or 4 years, it will end with, yeah, but that damn run play that Zach Taylor called in the second quarter, I mean, that's what did it. That's what cost him. Like, I feel like Zach's leash is way shorter than the pressure that comes with everyone else's. Not that anyone's going to be cut or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. I think his leash is just short, possibly, heading into this year.
Come on, Kenner. You know there'd just be a call we'd all complain about.
Oh, I would never say that. I would never say that. NFL mock draft. Mel Kiper released his latest mock draft post start of free agency, I should say. We'll take a look at that as we remain in the NFL. We'll move over to the Reds. I mean, opening day is just over a week away. I mean, a week from tomorrow is Reds opening day. Excited about that. How we feeling about the Reds? What are some of the things we feel good about? And what has spring kind of told you about some of the things to be concerned about? We'll get to all of that as we close out the show throughout the rest of the morning. More Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers when we come back. To you, Elliot.
And welcome back. Yeah, baby. Woo-hoo! Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Off the Bench will be happening tomorrow for the first day of March Madness, but we will be at a different location.
That's right.
Casey, Jacob, and myself will be at Champions Grill hosting a special March Madness Off the Bench edition. And we'll be going over the bracket. It'll be an all basketball show, I'd imagine, with a couple of topics sprinkled in there, just so we can go 2 hours. But yeah, I'm excited. So everybody who's coming over to Champions, please feel free to get there early. Again, we're getting there before the doors open. We are getting there an hour before the bar opens. But you have a special pass. If you knock on the door and say you're there for Off the Bench, you'll be able to get seated and get ready to go for the tournament and for the day. It's going to be fun. We're also going to be then streaming the games. Casey and Jacob and I are going to have to come up with bets. I imagine that's what's going to be most of the show tomorrow. It's going to be coming up with bets that we're going to ride and then live stream immediately after that. So we're going to be at Champions for a long time tomorrow. I'm very excited about it. It's our favorite bar, as you all know. So
it's been a while since I've been back at the Grill with an E on Work with an E. So I'm ecstatic to get back to the West Side.
I was told we're going to have a different seating location as well. So it's going to be a little bit of a different place.
Very special.
So I don't know what the whole plan will be, but tomorrow at 10-ish to 12-ish, we will be having Off the Bench for you guys.
Do we have an end time for the stream following Off the Bench? I had some people asking me about how long we would be there.
I told Tim, I said the first few games.
Perfect.
So the first couple of games, I imagine, would close up shop.
At very least, Louisville, Creighton, and High Point, Purdue.
Correct.
At very least.
Correct. And obviously, if my bets keep going, then we might just stay there all day long. Who
I'm
knows?
more than willing to hang out. What am I going to do? Go home and watch the games?
Yeah, who knows? Who knows? But come on out. It's going to be a fun time. It's the best 2 days of the year, arguably.
For sure.
Coming up. I don't know. I think Jacob said it yesterday, and I kind of agree with it. If you have to work, and most of you do, have to work on those Thursday, Fridays without any, way to watch those games.
Second monitor at your desk. Or,
It's the
worst.
worst. It's the worst.
Nightmare.
My favorite part about going to school, my favorite part was March Madness, because you knew not one single person in there, in the classroom, once computers and iPads and the Google Books or whatever they were called were allowed in classrooms, you knew not one person was caring at all about what was going on and with the teacher and everything.
I got detention my senior year at St. X for
Really?
watching tournament games in class, and it ended up too many kids were in detention, so we filled out the detention room, and they moved us to the auditorium and just played the games.
Yikes.
That'll teach you.
Tough.
It was awesome.
That's a tough one by St. X. Elder, I believe our teachers eventually just gave up.
Yeah, they started showing the games.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think we would take tests and the game would just be on.
Now, everyone's watching the games nationwide.
Correct.
If you're a teacher at an all-guys school, you have no chance.
Zero.
No chance.
And you know that going in.
Right. There's 2 days on the calendar you got to just cross off.
There's some teachers that I don't like to call teachers this, but there's some teachers that are going to go a little try hard, and they're going to say, all right, no computers today.
Yeah.
Because I know those teachers exist out there.
For sure.
And to those guys out there,
Stop teaching.
Just give it a break, man. It's easy for all of us. Just don't make us go on our phones. Don't make us bring the Apple Watch out and stream to the Apple Watch.
Streaming to the Apple Watch. What an invention that was.
So let's just be nice about it. We know the kids aren't going there to learn school that day. We are going to watch basketball. That's the whole point of the day.
Everyone does their best Cardale Jones impersonation.
That's right.
During the NCAA tournament. We're not here to learn school.
That's right.
When it's all said and done. All right. For the radio side, we head into hour number 2. We'll be right back. NFL mock draft. Mel Kiper put it together after 2 weeks into free agency. How has that changed his draft board? We'll talk about that when we come back. We'll take a look at who he has the Bengals taking at 17. How have things kind of shaken up in the top 10 and the AFC North as a whole? What does their draft look like? We'll take a look at all of those things when we come back. We're off the bench when we return. All right, and we are back. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, and Jacob Tissett with you here. This is Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, off and rolling here on a Wednesday. First four action last night, more first four action tonight. Xavier going to be taking on Texas in the 11 seed battle. That'll be a 9-10 tip-off. By the way, 9-10, where are we with that? Is that too late to be tipping off a tournament game for the first four, the pre-tournament?
Far too late. Far too late. Shout out North Carolina getting me to bed by 10 last night. I mean, that couldn't have been bigger. If they would have switched those two games, I would have been up to what, midnight?
Probably. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I find it weird too because the first game starts at like 6:40.
6:40.
So it's I don't know. I
think they want to give them the whole, or I guess like a half pregame show.
Yeah.
Because it might be their only game.
The 16 seeds should be playing at 5:30.
The 16 seeds should be playing now.
Correct.
Just go.
Like your drive home from work, you're at work. You should have the 16 game seed like on in the background. Like if I'm driving home from work, I get home with like 3 minutes to go in that game last night. That's all you needed to watch.
No.
You don't need to watch the rest of it. The last 3 minutes is all you need from that 16 seed. So start that one early. Second one can start at 8 o'clock? It's not bad. Start that game at 8 o'clock. That's been an issue with college basketball though forever. Their national championship.
What's college
their
sports
national
infatuation with tipping off?
I don't
or
know.
Kicking off at 10 p.m.
It can't still be for the West Coast, right? That can't still be.
Who cares?
I know. That's what I say.
The world's run on the Eastern time zone, baby.
I don't care at all about the West Coast. Like the national championship game is at 9:45 on a Monday. Like I start the game early.
Yeah, people were talking about, poor, San Diego State. Well, they're playing at 6 o'clock their time. I feel bad for North Carolina. 9 o'clock tip off. They're exhausted.
Yeah.
They're tired. But either way,
that's why these old coaches are retiring. They're tipping off too late. They get sleepy. Jim Larinaga was getting sleepy, tipping off at 9 in the ACC every night. He had to hang it up.
Yeah.
Jacob, you know which old coach doesn't get tired? That's all
Not
Bob
Huggy
Huggins.
Bear. Not Huggy
He's
Bear.
always out.
That's for
He's
sure.
always
This bit's so stupid.
He's always out late, man. He's a night owl. From what
guy's 80 years old. I've seen enough.
He keeps getting older by the hour. What the hell's happening?
The age quip doesn't quite work the same when the best current coach in college basketball is also old when he got hired.
Yeah, but he doesn't look like I'll take Rick Pitino right now at 92 years old over Bob Huggins. That's a fact.
Okay, yeah.
Pitino.
So would I.
Yeah, so
I'll take Bob Huggins at 92 years old over old Wessie boy.
Wessie boy.
What's that record without the quad 3 and 4?
I don't know, like 40 games under 500. 40 games. I mean, this is just a Bearcat slander show. They're playing in the Crown. They're playing in the historic Crown. I don't know if you paid attention to the Wes Miller radio show last night, Justin Kinner. I don't know if you were paying attention to that while March Madness was going on. But Wes said he was excited for the Crown. He's excited. Most of his roster's coming back for the Crown, the historic Crown.
The historic Crown played in June.
First of all, if he does have half his roster coming back and is willing to play in that, that's a win.
That is a win. That is a win.
No, it's not.
Any coach or program, any coach. No, and by the way,
keeping your players around is a win.
I want them all gone. Well, that didn't help this year.
But it's a good sign for the program's stability.
This is that Zach Taylor pizza party thing. It's got a good culture. He's got a good. I don't win anything.
Satterfield kept everyone around.
I guess.
Let's go sports for sports.
I'm done talking about UC. I'm done. Gives me headaches. I've had headaches for a week and a half straight. Need to go to a doctor.
All right, let's talk about the draft. Mel Kiper, ESPN, put out his latest mock draft, of course, and it's interesting to kind of see how some of these draft boards change a little bit, especially once free agency, has been off and rolling for 2 weeks. With how these teams plug some of the gaps on their roster in free agency, does that alter the direction they want to go in with the draft? I haven't really noticed too many changes in this. We'll start with the Cincinnati Bengals at 17. You guys, you and Casey, and you guys have thrown out so many names that would be good fits for where the Bengals want to go at 17. We've talked about the significance of Tee Higgins. You want to go pass rusher, obviously. If there's a guard there, great. That you feel that is an impact guy, great. But if Tee Higgins was not a part of the long-term plans, then you had to seriously consider a pass catcher, a wide receiver there at number 17. And because that's not a deficiency right now, you got that taken care of. Now all eyes are on the defensive side of the ball, especially when you only have 6 draft picks at the current time, for this upcoming draft. Mel Kiper with the Bengals number 17 pick has Shamar Stewart, the defensive end out of Texas A&M. How do you guys feel about that name being thrown out there in the latest mock draft for Mel Kiper?
Yeah, this is one of the ones on our list. Casey and I have an agreement that if the Bengals take Michael Williams, that we're going to get to each other's house, check in on each other, make sure we're okay, because that's a nightmare pick. Michael Williams is absolutely a nightmare pick. I would be very upset on draft night. He fits basically every physical box that the Bengals look for in an edge rusher. He fits the major college. He didn't really produce, which the Bengals don't seem to care about. He checks a lot of the boxes for the Cincinnati Bengals and who they attack in the draft. He reminds me a lot of the prospect Myles Murphy was coming out of Clemson. And where I still believe in Myles Murphy, I don't want to take another Myles Murphy. Let's take someone who has a little bit more pass rush production in college, a guy who hasn't had injury concerns. I would be very, very upset with Michael Williams to the Bengals at 17. I don't think it's a good fit. I don't think it's a good pick. I don't think it's immediate help. But in our defense, saving us a little bit, there's not many mocks that have him sticking around till 17. So hopefully someone takes that off our plate for us. I don't think he's going to be a terrible player.
Which name?
Michael Williams.
Michael Williams.
the edge rusher from Georgia that Mel Kiper has us taking. I don't like him at all. I think he could be an okay player. I do think he has a lot of work that needs to be done, a long ways to go to be that player, and I just don't have a lot of faith that the Bengals can do that. I want someone who's ready to go now, and he is far from ready to go now.
Casey, how you feel about that name, Shamar Stewart?
Shamar Stewart?
Oh, I thought he had a stake in Michael Williams. My bad.
Yeah,
Well, that's why I said that name. I wasn't trying to interrupt you to be
My
rude.
apologies. I was looking at the wrong mock draft.
You're okay. So he has Shamar Stewart, the defensive end out of Texas A&M.
You want to give your thoughts
Go
real
for
quick?
it. You got it.
So Shamar Stewart, we've mentioned his name a few times. He is just an athletic freak. Compared to Myles Garrett, they are very similar athletically. The difference is he has none of the numbers to back it up. So it's really a gamble on, do you think this guy can develop and into a player that can be a double-digit sack guy? Because he hasn't shown it. He hasn't been able to do that in his entire college career. And not to mention he's had other guys on that defensive line, like the Nick Scortons of the world and the other Stewart, to kind of help bolster up that defensive line. So you would have expected him to have gotten more production. Turns out he didn't. In the statistics that matter, like sacks, he had a lot of pressures. He just never got home, and that's usually a thing that the glaring issue with that is that he's a guy that's very raw, and we've already dipped our toes into that water with Myles Murphy. He's a guy that was very raw, and we haven't been able to prove that we can develop those types of players. So this is a pick that would make me very, very nervous for the future of the team. It's banking on a lot of things going right moving forward. But, man, if it does, then you have to imagine, like, if you do end up getting that development out of Stewart, that you might be able to get it out of Myles Murphy too, and you just get that ball rolling on the defensive line, and you've got a two-headed monster there for the future. You still got maybe Trey coming back. And he's also a guy that can line up all over the line too. Like I said, physically, a lot like Myles Garrett, who predominantly is on the edge but can line up inside and passing down situations, things like that. I mean, it would be a very risky pick. And we've had conversations about the Bengals making risky picks. Last season, very risky draft. Some hits, some misses, some unfortunate breaks. But that's what it's going to take, right? I think that's what we're going to have to be able to really make a leap forward and get back to where we want to be. So in one respect, I love the aggressiveness and the riskiness of this sort of pick. At the same time, it's, oh my gosh, how far back does this set us back if it doesn't work out? And that's just the risk that you have to weigh. I'm looking at the rest of the draft. Some guys that were available, like Jihad Campbell was there. I would have been happy with that. Derek
Listed
Harmon.
as a linebacker, I would say Jihad Campbell is a better edge rusher than Stewart.
Yeah, at this moment, I would agree with you.
How many sacks did Stewart have last year? 4, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Jihad Campbell had 5 in one game at edge rusher against LSU.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I have such a hard time drafting players without production. I mean, you see 6'6", 290, you think maybe if he can't edge rush, he can be a difference maker on the inside. Maybe that versatility can give us some help there when we need pass rush so bad. But I have a really hard time not adding pass rush in free agency and then drafting a guy who hasn't shown consistent pass rush.
Yeah, like there's out of looking at the rest of the guys that were taken later on in the draft, there's players that I feel more comfortable with their production being more ready for week 1 than I do with Shamar Stewart. James Pierce was there.
He might not go first round, which is nuts.
Yeah, that's crazy. Walter Nolan, Derek Harmon, those are a couple names there that I would feel much more comfortable taking in round 1 with their production, with their readiness at the NFL level. We already mentioned Jihad Campbell. Nick Emmanwori was right there as well.
We had a meeting with him yesterday.
Yeah, that's an interesting name too that I think, could play that box safety role for us too.
I do think picks like that kind of got eliminated, sadly. Like, I would have loved to take a Nicky Manwari. I see people in the chat talking earlier today about potentially, I'm blanking on his name, the tight end, Tyler Warren from Penn State. All these guys that we talked about, even, the take I had about if he's there, heck, why not take Ashton Genty at 17? All that stuff, at least in my opinion, is out the window because we've entered into my nightmare for the NFL draft for the Bengals, and it's you have to draft for need. We're going into the draft without a pass rush. You have to take a pass rusher, and you have to take a guard that you're confident in starting week 1. You have to leave the draft with those 2 things, which means you have to get those 2 things in the first 3 rounds. So 2 of your 3 picks, maybe 3 of your 3 picks are decided. Say they take Walter Nolan in the first round. That's an interior pass rusher. You're probably at the top of your list looking at guard and edge rusher in the 2nd round. And then in the 3rd round, the opposite of the guard or edge rusher. Like, they're going into the draft, and this is where I think their free agency has hurt them the most. They're going into the draft with what we talked about yesterday, and I don't even think it's one hand tied behind their back. I think it's both. Every single team in the entire league knows that the Bengals at 17 are taking a pass rusher. If we need one, we got to get above them. So that really, really scares me going into draft night because everyone in the entire world knows what the Bengals need, and the Bengals have no other option but to draft it.
And the other scenario here, too, that I know these mock draft analysts, Mel Kipers, they don't usually predict trade backs or trade ups. I do think that the Bengals at this current moment are one of the best candidates for a trade back right now because they need those extra picks. Like we said, they're going into it with a lot of needs that just need to be addressed. They have to be addressed. You got to get some pass rush in there. You have to get the 2 guard spots right now. 2. We expect them to get one, but
like, there's no way, right? There's no way they go into the draft with this.
That's what I'm afraid of. Like,
I think we're down to like 5 total signings for the Bengals in this era after this date. It's like La'el Collins, Mackenzie Alexander, a bunch of depth pieces. Von Bell in 2020 was after this point, so I guess some difference makers, but not huge names.
Right, and I think some of the guys in free agency, I know we're getting a little off topic here, but they are purposely waiting for their opportunities. I think the longer they wait, the better of an outcome they're going to get. But, yeah, I mean, you're going to ask, do I like Shamar Stewart or not? It's going to fill a need, and it might be able to fill 2 needs if it works out, but it's very risky. It's very risky. I personally, when I do my mock drafts in my mind, when I do them on the simulators and things like that, Shamar Stewart is right there at my 2nd or 3rd option. Like I said before, I listed some of the names that are more NFL ready, but man, if you can hit on him, right? If you can actually develop him into that, you get a ceiling of Myles Garrett. Like, that athleticism, you're not going to find anywhere else. So that's just like the risk you got to take. Can you develop? Can you not? And it goes back to the age-old question. You got to hit in the draft.
Yeah.
And we've had that same theme in this show for years now.
I will say, I think if Shamar Stewart is there at 17, he will be the Bengals pick.
Yeah.
I'm fairly confident in that. So I'm hoping someone in the first 16 picks really, really loves Shamar Stewart.
Yeah, that's the other thing, too, is, like, I don't know how the NFL views him because there's –
his testing numbers are Myles Garrett. It printed out a paper, and it was Shamar Stewart, Myles Garrett, same numbers. Myles Garrett had 34 sacks at A&M. Shamar Stewart had 4. How do you grade that?
Yeah, even if Shamar Stewart had half of what Myles Garrett had, he would be a top 5 pick right now in the NFL. He would be a top 5 pick. He would 100% be up there with the top guys. But because of that production, it's a scary proposition. I think, like I said, we have to see what they do the rest of free agency, because if they go into it with 2 guards missing, you got to be more safe than that. But yeah, I mean, that's my thoughts on Shamar Stewart.
And that goes back to what we talked about. Like last year, we talked about how many chances they took. They went after talented guys in the draft, but every one of them had some things about them that you're like, well, do you ignore that red flag? Do you ignore this? Do you ignore that? Like the Bengals were aggressive last year and it backfired. And then you haven't been aggressive in free agency. You were aggressive finally and got the Jamar and T deal done. But, in my opinion, I thought that keeping Jamar was always part of the plan. But by agreeing to keep T. Higgins with it, it put him in position where they now have to be perfect moving forward. They have to hit on every draft pick. They have to hit on every move in free agency. So at this point, is gambling on a guy smart if you're the Cincinnati Bengals, and it's one of those, if you do it, he better hit. This is the write-up that Mel Kiper has on Shamar Stewart, the defensive end from Texas A&M, who he has the Bengals taking at number 17 in his latest mock draft that he just put out yesterday. He says Stewart is one of his LTP guys, he looks the part guys, all right? So he says his physical traits, as we know at the Combine, will get the interest of teams seeking pass rushers. You guys brought it up, Jacob. He leaped 40 inches in the vertical jump, ran a 4.5 in the 40, but will the traits translate into production in the pros? His 4.5 sacks over 3 college seasons are unexpected from a player of his talent. And that's the write-up, basically all the summary of what you guys had already mentioned about him. But that's going to be the big question is, should the Bengals be aggressive with that type of move? And by the way, I don't know which one of you said it. Do the Bengals trade back? Do they trade back for more picks? Is that a Bengals move in your opinion?
No, not a Bengals move at all. I'm trying my absolute hardest not to do it ever in mock drafts or off-season talk. It is the dream. It is the absolute dream. There is no reason that I can wrap my head around why the Bengals wouldn't consider trading back. The way the board falls to 17, I assume Jackson Dart's going to be there as the third quarterback on the board. I assume at least one of those wide receivers is going to fall. I think tackles might go a little later than we expect with Will Campbell's arms coming in as short as they were. This board is going to fall in a very surprising way come the end of April. So I would love the Bengals to trade back. I don't think 6 picks is nearly enough to improve this team to where it needs to get with the offseason we've had so far. So to pick up an extra second rounder or an extra third rounder or maybe even both, depending on how far the team's moving up and how much they're willing to give, I would love the Bengals to trade back. It's just not something they do. But until 48 hours ago, extending 2 wide receivers wasn't something they did either. So maybe I can be more optimistic now that they've gotten some other stuff done that they don't usually do and start planning on trade backs. I would absolutely love it. I think it's what the Bengals should be targeting, but I would be shocked if that came to fruition.
Yeah, the only recent memory one, which we've talked about this draft class a ton, was when they traded back with the Bills and got the offensive tackle, and then that was the same draft they got the center, Ohio State guy.
Billy Price.
It
Price is
backfires.
Wrong.
Yeah,
Price was actually pretty right. We got B.J. Hill for, 6 years?
Yeah.
It eventually worked out. But you get my point. They got burnt by it once, so they're usually very risk adverse when it comes to getting burnt by things like that. But we'll see. I mean, it doesn't take a lot for you to trade back, and then if things start to fall in a negative way where you're losing the defensive tackles, the edge rushers that you were looking for, you can always trade back up. You can always trade back up and get the guy that you want. But that's just not usually something the Bengals do. But I personally think that the smartest moves that they could make is trading back 5 spots, get that extra third-round pick, be able to give yourself a little more wiggle room in terms of not being, forced into a pick at pick 17. And, also they need to make some more moves in free agency. I mean, they just can't go into it with the amount of holes that they have on this roster. But, I think that there's still some moves left to be made for the Bengals. That's the end point of this, is that there's still some things that they need to take care of before the draft, before we're super comfortable with making the Shamar Stewart picks of the world.
Are you locked in on defense or bust? Has to be defense in the first round now.
I think that it is the way that the draft has shook out with the offensive guards where they're slated at, that, it doesn't make any sense.
I mean, I don't think we were ever going to take a guard in the first round, right? Like a Booker or a Ratledge. Like, they were never 17, maybe tackle and move him in there. But I think offensively, the people we were really hung up on were the Lovelands and the Warrens of the world that could have really been fun additions. Or even, we threw out Ginty in this room for a little bit. I think that ship is gone. The luxury pick ship has sailed. There's no way you can justify that. I did see David Shaw in our chat here recommend that the Bengals maybe trade up instead of trading back, and that is something I could not possibly disagree with more. With all due respect, I think the Bengals thing they need most right now is assets. They need more picks, not less picks, and to give up a second or third rounder, to give up 49 to move up, 6 or 7 spots, I think that would be one of the worst moves the Bengals could make. I think they already have the difference makers they need, especially with the assumption Trey Hendrickson's going to be playing on this team next year. I would love to get a difference maker. I absolutely would, and I think one's going to be on the board at 17. So I do not think the Bengals have to move up, and I would even go as far to say I think that would be a very bad move for the Bengals this offseason, regardless of who they got.
Yeah, I mean,
let's Casey, real quick. Let's pick up with this. Let's take a quick break and pick up with this. More conversation on the Bengals and the draft, and then the AFC North as a whole, and then we'll close it out with some college basketball and red. So we'll be right back. We'll pick up with Casey's take on this. More Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers next. All right, and we are back. Mel Kiper released his latest mock draft yesterday morning. He wanted to release one following the first 2 weeks of free agency, and that's where we're at right now. We talked about the Bengals pick at number 17. Mel Kiper has the Cincinnati Bengals taking Shamar Stewart, the defensive end out of Texas A&M. And I know we're going to keep spending a lot of time on the draft as that gets closer, because right now and again, there's still a lot of free agents out there. I think, on Friday's show or next week's show, we'll spend time on the available free agents that could still make an impact for the Bengals, assuming that they don't add anyone between now and next week. What are some of those impact guys that could still help the Bengals? Will they pull the trigger on any of these names? Assuming that they don't, that makes this draft even more important, and they have to get impact guys, or as Jacob said, they have to get more assets. They have to accrue more picks just to increase their chances of hitting on some of these guys and being able to get impact guys, who are probably going to have to be impact guys in week 1 starting in 2025. So the Bengals going with Shamar Stewart there at number 17. We spent some time on there. The Broncos, by the way, are at number 20. I know they're not AFC North, but I thought it was an interesting get for them. They've been linked to Ashton Jeanty on a few of these mock drafts for Mel Kiper, but they have the receiver out of Arizona, Tat McMillan, dropping to number 20. I like that move if you're Denver with Bo Nix and obviously going to get another really good wide receiver out of the draft. He has the makeup of being an impact number 1 wide receiver. I kind of like the prospect of Tat McMillan in Denver.
Yeah, I'll go out on a limb here. I could not possibly be more wrong and out of tune with the NFL draft if Tat McMillan's there at 20. I can't see that in any way, shape, or form. I know he just ran a 4.53 and everyone's pressing the panic button. I don't know why people freak out when a wide receiver runs a 4.5 when we watched him be the best wide receiver in college football for 4 years. He's done it. He has proven production. He's a freak athlete. He's just a little bit slow. I think the absolute floor for Tet McMillan is 12 to the Cowboys. I think Jerry would jump on that opportunity to pair him with CeeDee Lamb. Wide receiver 2 is a huge need for them. I also think Jeanty's going to be gone well before that. I have him going into Oakland, or again, see, I did it again, to Vegas at 6. I don't think Chip gets one of his guys.
And one of the things, too, is we're saying 4.5 is slow. I'm pretty sure there was a guy named Julio Jones that ran a 4.5, and he had a pretty decent career.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say so. And a guy last year who definitely would have ran a 4.5 and didn't run, Marvin Harrison, who I think is a pretty dang good prospect as well. Colin Will puts in the chat Tee Higgins in the 4.5s as well. So plenty of good receivers, but obviously when you don't have football to watch, you hang on to shorts and T-shirts time. So Tet's going to keep falling as we get through this season, but he'll be right back up to a comfortable wide receiver 1 by the time we get to late April. I don't think there's any way he gets down there, but I would maybe lose sleep over that pick. That pick would keep me up at night. I think their addition of Evan Ingram really, really sets them apart going into next year. Sean Payton getting a true joker in Denver, which he hasn't had yet, that Jimmy Graham, Alvin Kamara role that they moved him around, put him in the backfield, put him split out in the slot. That's what Evan Ingram's going to do, and I think he's going to absolutely eat as their wide receiver 2 next to Cortland Sutton. If they can get a legitimate 2 and push him down to the 3, they can be a scary offense. So I would love that. I just don't think he'll be there.
Elliot, I know you're not big on on the prospects out of college or whatever, but we talked about the combine a few weeks ago, and I said I like the combine but hate it. NFL teams, they don't want you to go perform at the combine to look for a reason to draft you. They want you to go perform at the combine so they could take you off their list. They're not looking for reasons to draft you. They're looking for reasons to take you off their board. And this is a prime example of that. Tat McMillan should be he's not even the first wide receiver taken off the board. There's 2 running backs that are going off the board, according to Mel Kiper, based on the people he's talked to. 2 running backs are going off the board before a Tat McMillan, and it's because he ran a 4.5. Otherwise, he would have been taken significantly higher. This is mock draft, so you don't want to overreact to it. But this is why I said a few weeks ago, I'm like, I know the combine's cool because it's football content, but if I'm a top athlete coming out of college, I'm not going anywhere near the combine. You need to know something about me, come to my pro day or look at the tape. There's plenty of tape out there that you have to play 3 years in college. I just don't know why you would go to the combine. This is a prime example of a guy that, it's not like his life's over. He's not dropping significantly, but he should be taken significantly higher than 20. And if the reason is because of the 4.5, that's all because of the combine. I wouldn't even touch the combine if I'm some of these star players who
he didn't run at the
is
combine.
a top guy. Then where's the 4.5 coming from? Is it the pro day?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, then that totally derails my whole take. My bad on that. My bad.
Well,
but either way,
it doesn't change.
They're looking for reasons not to take you, and that's what's wild.
It doesn't change the fact that it's like spring training. All it is spring training. It can help your argument or it can not exist, right? If you think someone's someone is on your draft board and you think very highly of them and they do excel at the combine, they run real fast like John Ross did, that's going to help your case. If not, I don't give a damn. I think the combine. I think the combine's kind of outdated at this point. A guy could have a bad case of pancakes in the morning and just have chronic diarrhea and not be able to run as fast for that one day for the combine. You know what I mean? There's so many factors that go into being a good athlete. I'm not going to focus in on the 1 hour where you're in front of scouts as some sort of test. You can look at the 4 years of film or the 3 years, the 2 years of film that you've accumulated. That the combine to me is worthless.
Combine's for confirmation of film and setting a baseline. There's baselines of athleticism for every position. Casey's the biggest one on the RAS score, but it's true for every single position. You have to be a certain level of athlete to work in the NFL, and I think as long as a lot of people are above that threshold, a lot of the numbers don't matter. People get hung up on the difference between, half a second in a 3-cone drill or 0.02 in a 40-yard dash. That stuff doesn't matter.
I think,
like you just said, watch the film.
I think that stuff's irrelevant, and the fact that that's seriously considered is kind of a joke.
I think it's important.
I don't think so. You play 3 years of college football. That's what's important.
Well, you can look at the combine, and guys that don't perform well aren't good in the league, and guys that do are. So
maybe.
It is obviously an indicator
John,
of something.
I'm just saying, my biggest. I'll look at the guys who run real fast and say, what does that do for me? John Ross
is a bad example for this.
Okay,
he has 3 years of elite film at Washington.
I'm aware of that, but I'm saying when he ran that, when he set the record at the combine, that was the number one reason.
Yeah. He went from mid-first round to wide receiver 1.
It was not the film on tape. It was part of it. It was not the number one reason. I would say, I think it was a large portion of why Bengals fans and everybody else in the NFL like John Ross is because how fast he ran during that combine. I just don't think it's everything. I think if you had to give percentages of the tape, the interviews you have, I think that's what's more important than anything. Scott brought that up. Team interviews when you go to a combine, that's all that I care about. And that's all they should be there for, is to interview. If you want to do combine and maybe showcase yourself off, that's one thing. Like if you're a bubble guy, right? If you need to be there, that's who it's for. That it's not for like the first 2 rounds, in my opinion. So I agree with Justin in that sense.
The Cowboys taking Omarion, and by the way, my bad on the combine. I went in all hard on the combine. He wasn't even there.
No, but you're right. It's the right sentiment. The worry about people opting out of the combine for that stuff, though, is now everyone just pencils in a 4.6.
Yeah.
Like if you're a wide receiver that opts out of the combine, it's like, oh, well, you ran a 4.5.
Yeah.
And you didn't want anyone to see it. So it's
or what are you hiding? Or what are you hiding?
Like it's ending up working the same as running slow. So that was the issue with Tet, especially, was a lot of people were saying 4.6, which is the nightmare zone, death zone for a first-round wide receiver. And he was like, well, I wasn't going to run in my pro day, but now I got to run.
Yeah.
What if I can run a 4.5? So yeah, it's a very, very tough position to be in. I wish people put more weight into film.
So you had the Jacob, you had the Raiders, linking Ashton Jeanty there. Mel Kiper has Ashton Jeanty going number 6 overall to the Raiders. And then the reason I bring that up, I'll get your take on that. But then the Cowboys coming in at number 12, who he had Ashton Jeanty going to for quite a few of his mock drafts. He still has them going running back, though. Like, are the Cowboys like running back or nothing in the first round? He has the Cowboys taking Omarion Hampton, the running back out of North Carolina, at number 12 because Ashton Jeanty obviously going to go to the Raiders at this point. 2 running backs potentially taken in the first 12 picks. Cowboys, Omarion Hampton from North Carolina. How do we feel about that one?
I think at the very least, those 2 running backs will go in the first round. Omarion Hampton and Ashton Jeanty will both go in the first round. I think one of the Ohio State guys could sneak in. We could very easily see a 3 first-round pick running back draft class here, and I think the way that happens is if this happens right here. Jeanty at 6, and then Omarion Hampton at 12. I think this is the earliest that both 2 could be off the board. I don't know that running back makes that much sense for Dallas, but when you break it down, it's definitely a need. They had one of the worst rushing offenses in the league last year, and they lost Rico Dowdle. So they bring in Javonte Williams from Denver. They bring in Miles Sanders from Carolina, neither of which, especially Miles Sanders since he left Philadelphia, he's been nothing. Javonte Williams has been grossly underperforming in Denver to what his expectations were. But coming out of North Carolina, he was almost as big of a prospect as Omarion Hampton is. I mean, he was a huge deal. He was a very early second-round pick. Everyone loved him. So I think it makes sense. If I was Dallas, I would go a different direction. But, of course, Jerry's going to take an offensive skill player. So, yeah, I think they go running back. And because I agree with Kiper that Jeanty's going to go 6 to the Raiders, I think Omarion Hampton makes sense. But if you already signed 2 running backs, go fix some other needs. You have so many holes on that team. Zach Martin just retired. Go get an O-lineman to help keep Dak upright. He's been hurt the last 2 years. He's been putting together good seasons. So, yeah, I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense for what the Cowboys need, but I think it makes a whole lot of sense for how Jerry Jones' brains work. So, I'll co-sign that one.
AFC North, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mel Kiper has the Steelers at number 21, taking Derek Harmon, the defensive tackle out of Oregon. He does put in there, though, that's because both running backs, Ashton Jeanty and Mario Hampton, who we just talked about, he said if one of those 2 running backs is still available at 21, he could see the Steelers going running back over defensive tackle here, but he does have them taking the DT out of Oregon and Derek Harmon.
This would make me pretty upset because I like Derek Harmon a lot. He's one of the fits on my short list for the Bengals at 17 because of his pass rush ability in the middle. I think he's a really good player at Oregon. Made a big deal against that Ohio State defense both times they played. He's a difference maker, and for him to end up in Pittsburgh, line up next to Cam Hayward for the last couple of years of Cam Hayward's career, that would be a nightmare. So yeah, that would be a doozy. I'm holding out hope that fingers crossed and prayers up that we leave with my favorite mock drafts: Shedeur to the Browns and Jackson Dart to Pittsburgh. That's the dream. I'm going to go to bed with my head on my pillow every night, praying for 2 QBs to the AFC North in the worst QB draft class in recent memory.
The Baltimore Ravens come in at 27, obviously, in the draft order. He has them. Mel Kiper has the Ravens taking the safety from Georgia and Malachi Starks. No surprise, Baltimore defense, and more defense. Malachi Starks, the safety from Georgia.
Yeah, I've stopped freaking out about Baltimore draft classes a few years ago. You just know that, make a list of 5 players you love the most that you're for sure are going to be great in the league. One of them's ended up in Baltimore, so they'll get somebody. My guess right now is Nicky Manwari, 10 out of 10 RAS score from the draft or from the combine. Bengals met with him yesterday. Safety out of South Carolina. A lot of people think could move down to play off-ball linebacker. Basically exactly what Kyle Hamilton does. So they could just have Kyle Hamilton and Kyle Hamilton playing safety. And if you know anything about how good Kyle Hamilton is, that would be a problem for a team that has to play them twice a year. So, yeah, I'm pretty ill when it comes to looking at how this board's going to fall for the Ravens because, I mean, you got edge rushers like James Pierce, Mike Green. We talk about character concerns in Cincinnati. Not a worry in Baltimore. If they get their hands on one of those guys that are falling for character concerns, I will not feel good. Same goes for Philly picking 32.
You mentioned James Pierce Jr., who we talked about. I mean, that was the guy that was being brought up for the Bengals a lot early on. Mel Kiper has him going to the Lions at number 28. So we wrap this up again.
Real quick.
Yep.
Speaking of the Lions, not to completely derail this segment, I just saw this on X.com. The Lions have proposed a few new rules to the NFL. I thought I'd get your opinion real quick. The Lions' proposal is the team with the best record secures the number 1 seed and a bye, while seeds 2 through 7 are ordered strictly by record. So instead of a division winner with 8 wins, getting the 4 seed, it would be by record.
Yeah, I love it. Let's go to the NBA. Who won the Metropolitan last year, Elliot?
Don't know. Let's see. If we go to who did win the Metropolitan?
I have no idea who's in the Metropolitan. NBA divisions mean nothing. NBA divisions mean nothing because the conference standings don't matter for the playoffs.
What about this?
We have to keep divisions in football.
I agree.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
What about this one? The Lions.
I think they're arguing that it is broke.
That's what they're arguing.
Their argument is that the 8 and 9 Tampa Bay Buccaneers getting a home game is a broken system.
Yeah.
I just like what I'm familiar with. I think we'll just leave it there.
Yeah. Metropolitan is the NHL. I think.
Okay, there we go. There we go. See, none of the divisions matter.
The Lions have also proposed.
NHL divisions matter.
The Lions have also proposed a rule change to remove the automatic first down for defensive holding and illegal contact.
Why?
Don't know.
Did that happen to them?
I don't know. But the Lions.
Did it happen to Josh Allen?
Then
they'll change it.
The Lions are out changing the rules. So, good luck.
There's one other thing too, right?
Also, kind of with the Lions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which one?
Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow, Lions quarterback Jared Goff, and Falcons backup quarterback Kirk Cousins.
Okay.
Will be the quarterbacks for quarterback season 2. Following Receiver on Netflix, they're going back to quarterback. And those 3 guys will be the quarterbacks that we follow through this NFL season. So should be very, very interesting. Obviously, Joe Burrow, a lot of focus will be on the Bengals this season with T and Jamar coming back, all the other additions that they have or will make to this team. It'll be interesting to follow, obviously, the Lions following last year, the collapse at the end in the playoffs. It'll be great to follow Dan Campbell, see Jared Goff and that team moving through. And then Kirk Cousins. Loved him in the first season of quarterback when he was up in Minnesota. Hopefully, we can follow him a lot and see how he's doing in the backup role, coaxing Michael Penix along with the quarterback job down in Atlanta. So should be a really interesting season. I like all 3 of those guys. Should be good characters.
Do you think a part of it was because Joe Burrow wanted extra footage for his house so nobody robs it?
Maybe.
You think that was a part of it?
Maybe.
If we get 15 cameras in there, nobody can rob his house.
Cribs tour.
That's it.
I wonder if his employee helped him get the part for
maybe. Wonder if she's in it.
I'd
watch.
She might be in it.
I'd watch.
His employee. Oh, man. All right. Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, ESPN 1410 Wing AM in Dayton. We'll step away for a few moments. We'll close out the radio portion, just a shorter segment with the first round officially tipping off tomorrow. Our upset picks. Which upsets in the NCAA tournament are your locks? How many upset locks do you have? We'll get to all of that when we come back. More Off the Bench when we return. Jacob, say what you just said. Do it.
Welcome back to Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers here on 1410 Wing AM. That's one more than 1409.
That's right.
One less than 1411.
That's right.
That is math. All right, we welcome you back again. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, Jacob Tissett with you here. Since the tournament has not officially tipped off, just a couple exhibition games last night at the arena, 2 more exhibition games tonight, and then the real thing officially gets going tomorrow.
No.
I think that's how the bit goes. I'm not sure.
That's right.
No, the real thing already started.
Right. Oh, yeah. So change your bracket?
No.
Is your bracket locked?
Nope.
Oh.
Are you 2 for 2 so far, though?
I'm 0 for 2.
Oh, really? Alabama State was easy.
Well, not with the spread. I bet him with the spread.
Oh, you big dummy.
I picked him with the spread. 3.5.
A 2-point buzzer beater does not work for 3.5.
And I thought we were going to overtime, too. I texted everybody. I'm like, thank God this is going to overtime. 1 second left in the clock. How about a Hail Mary? A Hail Mary, too. Leitner ruined the game of basketball. Leitner ruined because that play shouldn't exist. Everybody who has 3 seconds should take the ball at half court and take a long-range jump shot. That's what it should be.
Everyone should run the Pacers play.
Correct.
Where you run the 4 verticals and you run screens and stuff. That's cool.
Or you can do that, I guess.
Anthony Grant with Dayton runs that play. He gets bored with basketball. He tries to be a football coach from time to time, you know. And
you hate Dayton so much.
You do hate Dayton.
Oh no! Anthony Grant was asked the other day after they lost in the A-10 tournament. Basically, the fan base getting anxious. What do you feel like you've done enough? And he said, "Yeah, I've done my part." I thought that was riveting stuff. I thought that was, he said, "I've done everything I can do." So it's up to I thought that was interesting. That's all. Accountability. I like coaches with
Was he the head coach of 2020?
Yes. Yep.
He has that. That's a champ. He's a championship.
But he's been. What championship?
He won that championship.
National.
What
championship?
The national championship.
They were not going to win. They haven't won their A-10 tournament since 2003. They were going to win the NCAA tournament in 2020.
Yes. Kinner, you're forgetting a big part of this. There ain't no stopping Obi Toppin.
Oh, I agree. However,
and it rhymes.
Nobody stopped him.
You want to know their biggest win that season? You want to know the biggest win that Dayton had that season?
Yeah,
they
been the national championship.
They almost beat Kansas. They almost beat Kansas in Maui. They didn't beat Kansas. They almost beat Kansas in Maui.
I watched that game. I watched that game. They beat Kansas. They beat them, just like they won the championship. They hung the banner.
They have more of a right for a banner than Florida State.
Yeah, correct.
They have more of a right for a banner than Florida State.
No. They played, those 2 losses they had that year, they were both against top 25 teams. They didn't have one win over a top 25 team the entire season.
Yeah.
Sounds
like St. John's.
They lost to.
We'll never know what happened, but I know it happened because they won that championship.
Fair enough. When I'm at the arena tonight cheering on Xavier, I'm going to look for the banner and send it to you. I'll send you a picture of the banner.
If we can get that banner in this studio at some point, that would be ideal. Casey's green screen's awesome, but if that can be Dayton's 2020 championship banner that they didn't win, that'd be really
Then I want to
cool.
I want to sit next to Casey then.
Okay. You'd have to come to the studio then.
I will come to the studio. I will get to the studio then if it means sitting in front of the 2020 Dayton Flyers National Championship banner. Are you kidding? Try and stop me. Ain't no stopping Obi Toppin. Ain't no stopping Kidder from getting to that studio. Just sit in front of that national championship banner. Let's be clear.
Is that the worst? Is that the worst thing to happen to a mid-major team in college basketball ever? That tournament not being played, or do you think it's the best thing to happen?
Oh, it's so much better.
You think so?
Well, they'll never admit it. They'll never admit it. But because I don't want to say Kinner was right, but they were never winning that championship.
But they wouldn't
never
win it.
But now they did.
But now they did win it.
Right.
You're right.
Yeah.
So now they just get to say we would have.
Right.
I wanted it to happen. That was they don't understand. I wanted it to happen as bad as they did.
Don't you understand the Bengals? If we would have made the playoffs last year, we would have won that Super Bowl.
You're right. That's actually a really good point.
Yeah.
Yep. Can't wait for the ring ceremony. Ring ceremony is gonna be great. But either way, all right. As we wrap this up, I said, what upset locks do you have right now for tomorrow's games? I know we'll be talking plenty of tournament tomorrow too, but right now as we sit here less than 24 hours away from the tip-off, we are just over 24 hours away from everything tipping off tomorrow. What are your upset locks for the first round?
First game, not chronologically time-wise, but chronologically bracket-wise.
Sure.
Easy layup. You always go 12-5s, and Michigan's the most bet team in the world, and I hate Michigan. UC San Diego's really good. It's a quad one game. I am all over UC San Diego and the Tritons in that one. I think that's an easy pick. I was surprised. I thought UC San Diego was going to be the public play.
Yeah.
I thought everyone was going to be on them, so I had originally picked Michigan to try to avoid that, but UC San Diego, now that everyone's on Michigan, it is so easy. I wanted to take it before the bracket dropped, no matter what 5 they were playing. Then they get a 5 that somehow thinks they were screwed, but weren't a good team all year, and then won a couple of games in Indianapolis and won the Big Ten. So, yeah, UC San Diego, that's my first one all day, every day. Love it.
So I'm not going to give away all my picks. I want to save some for tomorrow. But I'm going to say North Carolina is going to get past Ole Miss. And then I also, this is my big one, I think North Carolina is going to advance past that one when Iowa State loses to Lipscomb in the first round. Iowa State down their second best player. They didn't announce that before the committee.
Awesome.
Or before the committee made their decisions, that would have dropped them surely at least a seed. God knows if Louisville announced they didn't have a player, they'd have been out of the tournament. So I'd imagine that was a strategic thing. Iowa State down a player. I think Iowa State's good, but this is a tournament of chaos, and I don't think if you're not completely healthy, you're gonna lose to the chaos. Another team for that exact reason, not exactly fully healthy, Texas Tech. Where's Texas Tech in this bracket?
Texas Tech is bottom.
St.
John's.
Okay,
They got
so
UNC Wilmington.
UNC Wilmington's going to beat Texas Tech, and I'll tell you why. Texas Tech obviously didn't have some of their guys for that conference tournament. I won't fault them for that. Conference tournaments for the high majors don't matter a ton. But the fact of them, and they said they will be available for the game, but when you're dealing with injuries and stuff like that, I do think there's a chance that anything can happen. So I'm going to take UNC Wilmington there.
UNC Wilmington's a pretty good team, too. They're definitely a good team. They're a top 100 team, so... Yeah, they're a pretty good team. My biggest upset in the entire bracket, I guess we'll just give that away.
No.
I guess I'll just give that away.
Okay, give one.
Kansas, Sweet 16.
I like that.
See ya, Johnnies.
I like that. Okay, and here's another one. And again, I'm not going to give away all my secrets.
I think we're going to just give away them all.
No, I can't. I can't give away all my gambling secrets. One of the most bet props of this one of the most bet games of this tournament. It's St. John's minus the points against Omaha.
They're beating trash cans. St. John's C in the first round.
If Omaha, I could see a world
That'd
where
be
Omaha.
So awesome.
Because here's the thing: St. John's doesn't shoot the ball well
at all.
And I understand the defensive thing. Like if you're a good defensive team, you can shut anybody down. But if you go cold for a stretch, like a long period of time, they're not able to hit any threes or anything like that. I don't know. It opens the door up a little bit for a team like Omaha, who's got nothing to lose, and they're going all in against you. So I don't know. I think there's a chance. In a world where St. John's does lose to Omaha. And I am taking Omaha plus the points, plus 18.5.
I wanted to pick Liberty very bad because Liberty's a very fun team. They don't do anything but shoot threes.
Yep.
Nothing but shoot threes. But the issue with that game plan is they don't always make those threes.
Yeah.
And Oregon is a good team. I can't bring myself to pick against Altman in March, but Liberty was on the tip of my tongue. The game I'm losing sleep over, I lost sleep for 5 days over a fever and throwing up, and now it's Gonzaga-Houston. I cannot pick that game. Cannot for the life of me pick that game. I don't know which way to go. Gonzaga's made, 8 Sweet 16s in a row?
Yeah. The way I'm looking at that is...
Makes me. If Juwan Roberts doesn't play, I'm picking Gonzaga.
I'm going to start seeing in my brain what picks do I love, and then I'm going to go the opposite.
Okay.
And I love Gonzaga to win that game, so I'm going Houston.
Houston's my champion. So if I switch that pick,
oh boy,
I have to change the whole graphic.
Oh boy, that's the pick you're struggling with?
That's the pick I can't get over the hump.
So the question
Alabama
I have when you
thrashes Duke, by the way, thrashes Duke in the Elite Eight.
Thrash.
Goes out to New York and beats them by 20.
Thrashes.
They're getting past Horizon League champion. Is that what you're saying? You're saying that that's not an upset. You're saying that they are. Just
So Elliot, are they going to get past the Horizon League champion?
Who is the Horizon League champion?
Robert Morris. Do you have any stats on Robert Morris and why they might be a decent matchup for Alabama?
Now I see it. No, I don't. Bobby Morris is listen. They're not going to win the game, but Bobby Morris is going to cover the spread.
Yeah, I'm going to bet my life on that because Elliot's talking like this. So he's going to force me to take Alabama minus 35 because he wants to be the worst.
Bob Morris. I'm fading all SEC teams against the spread.
I want to see the game I want to see the most in the second round. By far is St. Mary's Alabama.
I like that
because I think it would make your eyes bleed.
I think it would be terrible.
Alabama would try to have would have possession of the ball 85% of the game and just run back and forth, and St. Mary's would get it and just immediately try to run a set offense. It would be brutal to watch. I want it so bad.
It's kind of like last night. No, what was I'm going to bet my life on Drake.
I really like that too.
I think Missouri is the worst team in this tournament.
So you
I think
have
Missouri stinks.
Didn't you have UNC? So you have Drake, UNC, Wilmington in the round of 32?
Oh yeah, I do.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah, I do.
Oh boy.
This is chaos.
The Johnnies just skate to a Final Four.
We don't watch March Madness
Their
because
path is easy.
No, it's not. No, it's
St.
not.
John's?
They're losing that second round game, buddy.
Arkansas.
No. Arkansas. Boogie Flan makes Arkansas so much worse. Kansas is going to remember that they're good for 2 weeks. They're going to win, and then they're going to take the week off for a weekend. They're going to win both these games. They're going to remember,
For the sake of your upset,
shoot,
I see
man,
why
we're
you're
top
saying
10.
it's not an easy
Shoot,
path.
man, we're top 10. And then they're going to get to the Final Four because Bill Self's a really good coach.
For the sake of your upset prediction, I get why you have to say it's a very tough path. It's an easy path to the Final Four. Obviously acknowledging that, yes, you're going to run into good teams. It's the easiest path to the Final Four when you look at the ones and the twos as far as that goes. I mean, you got to run into Florida. That's a problem. But you could that's a problem. I deal with that in the Elite
You're
Eight.
out on Florida?
I think Florida's by far the most overrated team in the conference right now.
Really?
In the country right now.
I think they're playing the best.
I've watched them multiple
Of
times.
course they are. They won the SEC. Every team that won their conference is playing the best basketball.
I don't
You're
know.
not picking them all.
I guess you're right.
Like, pick Michigan to go to the Final Four if you're picking who's playing the best basketball.
No, because I think Michigan sucked before that game, so I'm not taking them to win anything.
Well, I guess in that case. I do like Maryland out of the Big Ten to go pretty far.
Maryland might be one of the few.
I can't get them over Florida, but I think they'll play them close. I think that's a really good game.
There's a couple teams on this bracket that I legit know nothing about. Maryland is one of them.
Maryland starting five, all freshmen. They rock. They call them the Crab Five.
Crab Five.
It's electric. They don't have a sixth player.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Okay.
it's nothing.
All right.
If
Foul
those five guys come off the court for being tired
Foul
or
trouble?
being in foul trouble, they are dead. If those five guys can play, they might beat Florida.
Okay.
Derek Queen won Big Ten Freshman of the Year. He's a center. He played on the Montverde team with Liam McNeely and Cooper Flagg and all them. He was Ace Newell, the Georgia point guard. Unbelievable team. All five starters on that Montverde team last year that won the national championship are all starters on a tournament team this year.
Really?
Unbelievable stat. Unbelievable stat.
You picked North Carolina. You picked North Carolina though.
I also have
can't
North
let you.
Carolina.
I can't let you pick North Carolina as an upset
That's an
because
upset.
they're a
What do you
point
mean?
and a half. They're a point and a half favorite.
I don't care about
You're
that.
a
I don't-
favorites upset guy?
Nah,
No,
I
no,
don't
it's
care
the
about that.
seed. It's
by
the
the
seed.
seeds. Isn't Colorado State favored
Colorado
over Memphis?
State's favored.
Over Memphis?
We had
Yeah.
this debate, I think, about 2 or 3 months ago. I also can't look at blue bloods like North Carolina and say that them beating Ole Miss is an upset, especially now that I have
Now
Vegas on my
that,
side.
that I could get behind. Now that I could get behind more than the spread.
I'm taking North Carolina.
But the spread adds to it.
I'm not kidding. I bet $20 on that team to win a championship, fully knowing that it's impossible. 20 to win $5,000.
I bet 100
The reason
on the
it's not-
Bengals won the Super Bowl yesterday after that press conference.
Did you really?
Yeah.
But in this tournament, a lot of times experienced veteran teams do very, very well. So North Carolina is not that bad of a pick. It would not be surprising at all to see UNC make a deep run to the Elite Eight Final Four. It would not surprise me whatsoever with the experience they have on that roster. So we'll see. It's like football. Just bring back everybody. Just keep bringing them all back. That's all that matters.
I understand Auburn's the number 1 overall seed, and they deserve, therefore, the easiest draw.
Sure.
What the heck is this draw, man?
I don't
Who do they play?
Yeah, I'm slowly listening to Jacob's propaganda on Auburn.
I am so far out.
I know, and that's why I want. So you're believing in a Michigan State then?
No.
Louisville?
Yeah.
So you're a Louisville guy.
I'm
Okay.
a Louisville guy.
Okay, that's okay. If I will say this,
But if not Louisville, then Texas A&M. If not Texas A&M, then Michigan State. Like, I would pick each way.
Oh, spoiler! That's another upset. Yale's winning that game.
Oh, no, I don't have Yale. Way too many people have Yale. Way too many people have Yale.
I'll take
Jay
Yale.
Wright picked Yale on national TV, and like 54% of brackets have him.
I'll take Yale.
All right,
Wade
well, we're
Taylor,
out of time.
You're going to learn Wade Taylor, buddy.
We'll pick up with this when we come back, but we're done on radio. Until tomorrow, this has been Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers.
9-10. 9-10, the start of the Xavier versus Texas game. I don't know how many Muskies fans are out there listening right now to this program. I know our good friend Mouse Cop is. Mouse Cop, I hope you have fun tonight. Be safe. Make good choices. And I think this is the one game. Mouse
What
Cop,
if our seats are together? What if I'm accidentally sitting next
That's
to my
the thing
guy?
is you would have no idea.
You wouldn't know.
I know. That's
He'd
the
know.
scary thing.
That's a very scary thing.
And he would just like tweet pictures of you. You would
listen,
have no way of knowing.
And I know what Mouse Cop looks like, but I'm not. I think it's more fun if you don't know. So I won't send you his picture. I'm not going to send you his picture because I think it's way more fun if you're out there with a head on a swivel.
He has informed us that he will be seeking out a picture with you. Not
That's,
of you. With you.
I'm going to.
I swear, if you find me, not only will we do the picture, I'll buy you a beer.
Oh,
wow.
I will say.
Maybe he'll realize I'm not as bad a person as I come across on the air when I'm very. I don't know how to have conversations with people where we disagree and I not sound like an asshole. Like that's the problem. So like that's my fault. But maybe, just maybe, I'll buy him a beer and he'll see I'm not that bad. Or I'll buy him a beer and he'll just chuck it in my face and we'll call it a day.
That would be funny too. Both would be funny bits. I'm all for it. Listen, if you have to buy your way some love, I'm gonna support you, Kidder.
You've tried.
I've absolutely tried. Oh, absolutely. I've met Mouse Cop the first time I met Mouse Cop was at the Chatterbox Reds night, and I think we were all pretty shocked at Mouse Cop coming up. And it was very funny because a lot of them come up and say, "Guess who I am? Guess who I am?" I met Smelliot, historic Smelliot at the casino. He came up to me. He's like, "Guess who I am? You'll never know." And I'm like, "Who? Who are you?" And he said, Smelliot. I thought it was a joke. So if Mouse Cop comes up to you and says, "I'm Mouse Cop," it's going to be a very fun time. I hope that happens.
I am going for Xavier tonight. Does that help or hurt my is he a UC or a Xavier guy?
Mouse Cop's a Xavier guy. Mouse Cop's the biggest Xavier guy in the world.
Well, I'm doing the ultimate troll tonight, going to UD Arena. I got to go to somewhere after this to look for a Xavier shirt, but I'm going to UD Arena, who they hate more. They hate Xavier more than anything out there. I am going decked out in Xavier stuff tonight.
There you go.
For the
Who do you hate more, Dayton men's basketball or the Cleveland Guardians?
Oh, the Flyers.
Okay.
Okay.
Those are your two most hated teams.
And by the way, hate strong word. All right.
Okay.
But I dislike the arrogance and I dislike they're too good for the NIT. They're too good for the Crown. They're too good for all of these tournaments that they have qualified for more than 60% of the time that Anthony Grant has been the head coach. They're too good. I'm like, maybe you should be good enough for that and own it and master that. Like the one tournament that you're saying you're good enough for is the one you keep missing constantly.
So your feelings of Dayton is like Jamar's feelings of Cincinnati. He hates the city and doesn't like the food and doesn't think there's anything to do, but he loves it.
I saw a lot of people mad about that question. Does anyone like the food options we have in Cincinnati?
Cincinnati has fine food.
It's not good.
It's not the best. It's not terrible.
It's worse than the level of city Cincinnati is.
I thought the quote was very funny. I love Cincinnati. Here are my reasons why. There's nothing to do and the food sucks.
I do think nothing to do is definitely a positive for guys like that.
Sure. Superstars, yeah. I mean,
other than Jermaine Burton.
Yeah, Jermaine Burton found something to do.
Well, I guess the stuff that he does is just not pay rent.
Correct.
So,
all right.
Take a lot of time.
We got to get out of here. We got to go. So everybody have a very pleasant Wednesday. Go Musketeers. Go beat Texas because I'm fading the SEC.
We'll box you up some lunch here in a little bit.
Yeah, we'll see you guys later.